All right, welcome back to the Mortgage Marketing Expert Podcast. I'm your host, Phil Treadwell. You guys are in for a treat today because this man needs no introduction. However, he is the #1 real estate educator and coach in the country, has incredible events, has incredible people on his team. Got to see some of these facilities. They're first class too. Tom, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Phil, thank you, man. Appreciate the opportunity. Congrats on all that you've done the last couple of years.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's been a work in progress for sure. Just following guys like you that are building out their ecosystem and adding value to people. And I kind of want to jump off there. How did this whole thing get started? Like, what was the desire to go out and really help real estate professionals build their business?
I'd have to go all the way to the backstory because I've been doing this for almost 33 years. So picture a kid who got kicked out of 4 high schools, kicked out of both parents' houses, graduated with a GED, was working at a grocery store from midnight to 9 with a purple mohawk, and literally, Phil, looked to the guy on my right and the gal on my left, and it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, we're stocking shelves, and they were old. I was 18, they were like 32. And I just thought, I don't know if I want to do that. Yeah. And I had spent every summer, my parents, separated when I was 6, every summer at my pop's place, packaging audio cassette programs. And every now and then he'd walk by and say, hey, you should listen to this one. And so I'd pop in like Earl Nightingale, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, and like begrudgingly would allow it to play in the background because I was getting paid like, $4 an hour or whatever to like ship audio cassettes. But I remembered that. And at 18, I had this thought like, a lot of my friends ended up in bad ways, didn't go to college like myself, kind of went down some bad spirals. And I'm like, my dad's probably doing something right. What if I ran his company? Now, I couldn't even imagine having the audacity today to sit there at 18 with like a Bauhaus t-shirt on and a purple mohawk, stocking shelves, looking at these people that were, I still know a couple, they're like wonderful human beings, but to literally say, I'm going to run a business and I don't even know what the business is. And literally, serendipitously, 2 nights later, my dad walked in and I said, I hadn't talked to him like a year and a half. Like he kicked me out. Like he didn't actually kick me out. My stepmom kicked me out. There was a 1974 LTD with the suicide doors. They bought Kathy Spadoni, my dad's first assistant, her car. She was going to, they're giving it to me for my birthday, but I got kicked out of school that day. So I got no car and all of my clothes left in front of the house. Right. So I hadn't talked to him since then. So picture, you got kids, right? So I don't wish this, or maybe we do, right? With our kids. Picture I see him and he's like in an Armani suit. I could just imagine like my stepmom calling and saying, hey, before you get home, make sure you get some milk and bread and whatever, yada, yada, yada. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning and he's pushing this, cart, right, with his Armani suit on, probably just did 5 speeches in 5 different cities. He's completely wiped. And I walk up to him and I'm like, Dad, I want to run your company. And he looked at me, he's like, hey, when the drugs wear off, come talk to me. And he just deadpanned, turned his cart and went a different direction. And I was like, okay. And the next day, I kind of cut my hair to a reasonable, tried to dye it somewhat normal, put on my best all black uniform. And that sat down with him and said, what would it take? I did 1 semester of college. I took accounting and philosophy and what would I need to do? And we actually laid out a plan and I did that for about 5 years. It took me 9 years to take over the company. But in the meantime, I took it from a little $3 million business to a $45 million business. And that began sort of the love of making money is easy. Yeah. Having a legacy is hard. Creating impact is easy. Creating positive impact is a little more challenging. You can walk into a situation and do something horrific and you made an impact, right? But to make a positive impact and to create a legacy, I just got obsessed with who were the women and the men that I had access to and what were they doing and how were they doing it? So I fell in love with, it's so cliche, like success leaves clues and all these things that, we say and we know, yeah. But because of my pops, I had access to people that no person my age should have access to. I would get the front row seat to go sit at a Brian Tracy workshop or, meeting Tony Robbins when I was 18, when my dad was the infomercial host, of an infomercial and Tony was like a testimonial, right? You start to get these relationships and you realize what all these extraordinary women and men had in common is this sort of passion for contribution, right? The desire to see the greatness in others when they don't see it. So I wasn't born with it. It was 1,000 books and it was 1,000 mistakes and it was, thinking you were doing it the right way and totally screwing up in the process and then learning from the experience, and then harnessing it into sort of a strategy and a playbook, and then kind of the rest is history. I mean, it never stops. You know,
yeah,
it's why we do. It's why we do these podcasts, right? Like as I said to you, when I do podcasts, I'm like taking notes. I'm like, tell me, Phil, how'd you do that, right? Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question, but like that gives you a little backstory.
No, it absolutely does. Well, what I heard in that though is everybody that you talk to, or everybody, a lot of people that you talk to, and a lot of people that I talk to, they want this magic bullet. Like they don't want the cliches. But what I heard right there is the Jim Rohn. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You just had access to really high level people, and then you continue to stay consistent and persistent over time. But the part I want to unpack, because we're spending a lot of time talking about this in my groups as well as the podcast, is this failure being the path to success. Right?
Yes.
Academia teaches you that if you fail every quiz, fail every test, even if you learned everything, you're still a quote unquote failure. But in the real world, that's how you succeed. You fail and you learn. So I want you to kind of unpack that for everybody for a second.
I have two kids in college, and I say C's get degrees, guys. like this is more about the network you create. It's the relationships. Find the nerdiest kid. Befriend him or her, especially if they're coding. Find the richest family, go befriend those kids. I mean, it's people and relationships and access,
Absolutely.
Right? But on failure, when I first got into sales, my first 3 years, I think I made, we didn't have CRMs the way we had it back then, but you can kind of calculate this many days, average of this many calls. Oh, Goldmine, I think was the first one we had. Geez. I mean, I think it was like run on DOS. I mean, it was just crazy, right? But it was better than yellow notepads and reels of like yellow notepads of just like names and numbers,
with the
right?
At the top.
But I remember starting my journey as a salesperson, and make 10 phone calls. Hi, I'm calling about click, and taking that personally. And then I don't know what it was. I think it was like going back to the early days of watching like Star Wars films. And literally I used to have like a VHS player like in my office, and I would play Star Wars like in the background while I was making phone calls as like the reminder that the Force runs strong in my family. These crazy things that we do, right, to get over the very real pain and suffering of nonstop rejection. But there was something along the way that I realized, like, okay, the yes gives me so much energy, gives me so much joy that, the success was so worthwhile that the 25 rejections, like they all kind of like, well, they said no, they hung up on me, who cares? They don't really know me. They don't know what I'm all about. Like maybe they're having a bad day, all these things we say to ourselves as salespeople. And then the yes, I was like, oh, like I want that all the time. But then that led me on the journey to get better. Yeah. Now you failed the whole time. Yeah. Everything's a test, A/B, this opening of a script, that opening of a script, this email subject line, that email subject line, this kind of show, that kind of show. One performs better, one doesn't. I don't care anymore. Right. I think I learned early on too. I would put 2 or 3 headsets on, you with me, and I would dial 3 phones at the same time to kind of increase the rejection factor and get faster to the yes. Yeah. So you start hacking things like that, which I know today there's like modern, there's so much automation now that like back then, like I literally had to dial the phone 3 different times and got pretty good at it.
Not rotary, but you had push button.
Yeah, push button, but but now it's, did I shoot that video and did it resonate or not? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And I still get people that just will, the deal, the trollers of the world, the haters of the world. Like I don't know. I kind of like now I'm like, bring it on.
Yeah. It's interesting that you talk about that because, the way that I had a mentor explain getting over rejection is we get tied up too much personally in offering them something that they may or may not want. Yep. And the way he framed it is like, imagine if you are taking a bunch of people to Burgers. They got some fries and there's ketchup in the corner. You grab the ketchup and you hand it to them and say, hey, would you like some ketchup? Yeah. If they say no, you're like, oh my God, why don't you want my ketchup? Like I'm
never going to ask anybody for ketchup.
Exactly. I'm offended, the whole deal. And he's like, you just need to get over it. But it is interesting today because when I got in the business, I was handing out black and white photocopied flyers. I mean, with the lines on it where you could see the Scotch tape where I'm, put piecing these together. And I did that 9 or 10 hours a day. And when I first got started, it was probably 2 or 2.5 weeks before I had a realtor that actually had a real conversation with me beyond, hey, how you doing, whatever. And today we have people that record a video or 2 and post it out there and their phone doesn't blow up and they're like,
I can't believe it.
Content marketing doesn't work, social media doesn't work, whatever. Yeah. So in today's market, right, obviously things are changing, whether it's real estate or mortgage professionals. What should people be focusing on that 1 or 2 things that they need to consistently do on a daily basis to grow their attention, to reach their audience? What are some tactical things you guys are coaching on right now?
So I have a different perspective. It's sometimes hard for me to say, do this or do that or do this,
Sure.
because I've got, call it 65,000 hours of private coaching sessions under my belt. So what I would say to the person listening is, assess first, what are the plays that I run that work? And I would literally say, so there's plays like content, there's plays like email marketing, there's plays like open houses, there's plays like direct mail, there's plays like phone calls, there's plays like referrals, there's plays like the way you ask for referrals and when you ask referrals and what you say for referrals. I just think too many people leave things to chance. Like right behind me, the fourth book that I wrote sort of before the pandemic and I haven't released yet, is called Plays at Work. And the concept was, if you can tell me the problem you have, I can give you plays, but I can't give you one. I got to give you multiple plays, because you might be in a different stage of your career. You might be in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. This person might be in New Brunswick, Canada. This person might be in, New England, Massachusetts. And there is a different psychology with buyers and sellers and consumers in every one of those marketplaces. We're all human, right? We all have a lot of similarities, but there's a different vibe in Boston than from New York,
Sure.
right? Certainly from like Massachusetts to, Los Angeles. So the thing I would say to the person is, really assess, what are all the things that I do that work? Like we talked about earlier, email marketing, right? And you're like, my email marketing open rate is like 45% or 50%, which is bananas. And then my response is, so how consistent are you?
Right.
Do you send something every Tuesday, every Wednesday? Have you tested what days of the week work? Or is it just, Larry was there, so we sent it on Thursday? Do you know what I mean? So find out what works and then design plays around it, then create more structure around it so I do it all the time.
So create efficiency so it's duplicatable.
100%. Turn it from an idea into a system and a process, and in a perfect world, outsource it, delegate it to somebody else. So that'd be the first thing.
Yeah.
But then if you came to me and you said, well, I'm already running a lot of plays that are working, but my performance is down, interest rates have got me down, there's no more refis, I'm struggling, I've lost all my realtor relationships because I was so, the phone was just ringing off the hook and deals were coming in left and right and I'm trying to re-engage. The thing that I would say is, start first with, who is your audience? Now that's Facebook, Instagram, that's YouTube, that's television, that's
Sure.
radio, that is every medium that you would want to use. First, who is my audience? Who am I trying to attract? Then I ask, what are the problems that those people are facing? And before you hallucinate the problems, pick up the phone and call 10 of them and say, Phil, you're in the mortgage space. What are some of the challenges you're facing today? Well, the rates have certainly impacted, blah, blah, blah. We're still using the same software. That's been a challenge. And, I don't talk to as many people. And you actually hear what their real problems are. And then if you say, tell me more about that, tell me more about, yesterday, I had one of my buddies in the room who's the biggest infomercial producer on the planet. And he and I cut from a similar cloth. His father-in-law is my first early mentor. So we kind of have a lot of similarities. And he says, look, if I'm going to create an infomercial product, the first thing I do when Amazon calls and says, help us sell more of this on television, radio, et cetera, he's like, well, tell me who your clients are. And then tell me what the problem is. Mm-hmm. And sitting in the room is a buddy of mine who's a vet who lost a lot of his hearing in his right side and wears a hearing aid now, right? Extraordinary human being. And he asked him, he said, what for you is hard about wearing a hearing aid? He's like, well, it's hard because I've got too much noise happening around me and this happening and this happening. He's describing all these very honest but superficial answers.
Yeah.
And my buddy says, well, tell me more. Why does it really bother you? And he says, well, because I feel like I'm missing out. And he's like, tell me more about that. And he said, the truth is, it just makes me feel like shit. That was the moment.
Yeah.
When you go deep with people and you take the time to really understand what their pain is, then you create content, you speak directly to them.
Yes.
You speak to their heart, you speak to their head, you speak to their possibility. They go, this Phil guy knows me. And that's what I've always prided myself on.
Yeah.
So I don't care if I put out a piece of content that has 2,000 views, 10,000 views, 100,000 views, 10 million views, and I've got videos at all of those ranges, because now I try and be so precise with who I'm trying to impact in that show on that piece of content that 50, 500, 500 million doesn't make a difference to me, because the one person that listened to it, I was speaking directly to her. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but does that make sense?
This is perfect. The reason I'm nodding and grinning is two reasons. One, anybody that's listening right now hears me talk about the basic marketing formula that everybody should follow. And it's exactly who is your audience, who's your target market, who you're trying to reach.
Thank you. Yep.
Number two is what problem do you solve? What message or value are you trying to deliver that specific audience? And then the third thing that I add on there is what's the most effective medium to deliver that message and problem solution to that audience. And the other part of that was whenever you're having conversations with people, I don't care if it's a mortgage client, if it's a real estate client, if it's a
direct
recruit,
to consumer, a recruit.
That doesn't matter. If you'll ask them, what's significant about that for you? What, tell me more about that. And you're essentially asking why, but when you ask why, it puts people on the defensive. I said, why did you wear that shirt? Right? And so what happens is we had a client just recently, a few weeks ago, works for a nonprofit. Our mortgage team is around building real estate. It's called Your Brew Team, Build Real Estate Wealth is the acronym. And so she came in and talking about the wealth side and whatever. I said, hey, before we get into all that, like, I'm just excited you're on the home buying journey. What's significant about you buying a home? Right. So again, she talked about working for a nonprofit. She wants to buy a house for retirement, so on and so forth.
Why significant versus important?
I think because important can be subjective, but significant, people kind of take ownership. If it's significant for them, now I don't think that there's a right or wrong way. That's just the one that we chose.
Because the what's important is like the value elicitation 101 from my early days of NLP, and I actually like the significant more, and I'm just curious.
No, I think it was just part of that may be in our high trust conversation that we learned from Todd Duncan. And just kind of built.
What's up, Todd?
Shout out to Todd. But what happened is we continued down that path. What we really got down to was she wanted to be able to paint the walls whatever color she wanted because she was renting, and even if she got the landlord to do it, she'd have to leave in a year or two. And so all of this stuff around wealth creation and home ownership, it all came down to she was in the process to buy a home because she wanted to paint her own walls. And I think to your point, if we'll make it human and if we'll actually ask that, then later on, whenever you have loan officers that are chasing page 10 of 10 of a bank statement that says intentionally left blank or whatever, you can now reframe it to, hey, I know this is a pain in the butt, but just think, once we get this done, you'll be able to get in that house and paint the walls any color you want because we've now reframed it that it's about them instead of something that we 100%.
Want. 100%. I love that. No one likes mortgage speak, realtor speak. I have a friend who started a mortgage company recently, and I'm an investor in the company, and like he advises me, I advise him. Just another mutual friend, and so much of the work that they've done in the early days is the testing of A/B language. Like what do consumers want? What do we think that they want versus what do they want? What do we think they say versus what do they actually say? And when you actually switch to their language versus your language, people want a pre-approval. No, they want to know how much they can buy a house or what their mortgage is going to cost them every month. As soon as you make it like that, you win. But I want to go back. I was thinking about something else in this sort of plays, because I was maybe going a path, but I want to go deeper on one thing and get your input on it. So if you came to me today and said, hey, I'm going to take my business from here to here, how? That's a different conversation. I would say to you first and foremost, if your business today isn't, let's just call it a third from referrals, a third from the brand that you've established. People know, like, and trust you, but they haven't. No. That's all referrals.
Gotcha.
Database, past clients, referrals, people of influence, connections, versus they know me, I don't know them.
Got it.
That's brand. You with me? That's the content you put out. That's the messaging. It could be a billboard. It could be a sign in the subway. It could be an email that was shared.
You've got their attention, but you don't know that that you have their attention yet.
The key is that they know you. You don't know them. So when you walk in the room, they're like, "There's Phil. Oh my God, Phil! I see. I say a third of your business should come from that, and then a third of your business should come from demand gen. And I think whether I'm talking to an agent or a loan officer, what I find too often is people become very myopic very quickly. And they say, well, I'm just going to get referrals. And I say, that's great. So you're going to leave 66% of the available revenue on the table for someone else to go get, probably like me. Thank you very much. And they go, well, no, I did $100 million in loans last year. I'm like, yeah, but you know what you didn't do? $1 billion. You know what you didn't do? At least 300 million. The person that's thinking really big, like, how do I scale my service? How do I scale my solution? How do I scale the commodity of a mortgage or of title insurance? You with me? And some could even argue the commodity of opening a door as a buyer's agent, right? To show a house versus being a listing agent, which is a little bit different.
Sure.
Not a lot, but it's enough different. Is I say, you got to have all three playing. You can't be myopic and just say, look, I'm going to be satisfied with, $3, $7, $8 million a month in fundings just from referrals, from referral partners.
Right.
You with me? Instead, how much business do you get because they just call you, email you, visit your website, versus where are you putting $1 in and trying to make 6, 7, 8, 10?
Right.
You with me? Like,
100%.
I know loan officers today that co-market through all the right rules, right?
Yeah.
They used to do it with Zillow. Now they're doing it with Realtor.com. Some are trying to figure out how to do it with Google.
Yeah.
And my response is, every client is another opportunity for another relationship, for more clients. Now, some, the acquisition cost is low, and some, the acquisition cost is higher. I don't care.
Yeah.
What I want is more clients.
Yeah.
I want more reach. I want to provide more service to more people, and I'm not going to limit myself because of what I feel is comfortable.
Yeah.
I don't care how comfortable you are. I actually want you uncomfortable.
Right.
Thoughts?
I totally agree. People get focused on just going deep in one area, right? This conversation of width versus depth.
Yep.
Yes, you need to go wide, something you talked about earlier, and where do you get results? We call it the 3 E's. Your effort, what are you doing, right?
Yep.
Measuring results, tracking results so that you can find out what you're effective at.
Right.
And you go to the 30, which is efficiency, by stacking those on top of each other. Too often people want to go in one area. Like, to your point, I get a lot of referrals. I'm going to lean all the way into referrals. Right. I do really good with ads, so I'm going to do all that or whatnot.
Right.
The one commonality for me in those three things, whether it's your sphere of influence referral, people that you have their attention but you don't know that, or putting money in, getting money out, is that in all three of those things, you've got to be referable. You've got to be you have to have positioning.
Right.
In each of those, there needs to be a reason why they think of you. Why do they, if you're doing ads, why do they notice your ad versus somebody else's? If you have their attention, it's probably because you talked about who you are, not just what you do.
Bingo.
Right? That pillar content of, one of the things that happened by mistake a few years ago, when I was traveling a lot, I would take a picture out the window of the wing. I would take a wing pic, right?
Yep.
And I got to where I did that all the time, but those created the most conversations. Where are you going? What are you doing? What's happening? To where now
engagement.
Exactly. Yep. Engagement's important. To where now people are tagging me in their wing pics, right? It became part of that brand.
Right.
And then on the referral side, everyone knows a ton of realtors. Everyone knows a ton of mortgage professionals. So how did you niche down? How did you position where you're the one that they think of?
Yep.
And then the last part of that for me is all of those things work really well if you engage in other people's content as much as you just create and post.
Yeah.
I think we have a culture where we spend so much time wanting to create content and post content that we forget, no matter how good it is, no matter how many people it reaches, in that marketing formula we were talking about, you don't know that it's landing in your intended audience. But if I go engage in my intended audience's content, they will for sure see it. And if they don't know who I am, what do we do when someone comments on our post we don't know? We go to their profile. Who is this? Or whatever.
Right.
And so I think that the
way
that we can leverage those.
But that doesn't mean hiring a bot to do it. But you
No,
can't. But hold on. But you can have somebody on your team do it.
Sure, absolutely. It needs to be human.
You know what I mean? You see the bots that are just like the 3 hearts on a post that had nothing that a heart would be appropriate for.
Right.
Don't do that. Don't do that. But you can have somebody on your team
100%.
that knows how you speak, knows where your values are, like knows you, and then do it, and then you can scale it.
Sure.
Especially when you have a lot of platforms, because I got a lot of platforms, so it is challenging.
Yeah, if you have 2 or 3 personas on 6 or 7 platforms, there's a lot of engagement that goes there. Now, early on, people need to do it so that it can be learnable, teachable, duplicatable, scalable down the road. But the other part of that is it needs to not be spammy, salesy content. I was sharing with you that we started a team earlier this year.
I don't know. Some people, though, are spammy, salesy cheese bags, and they seem to always do what do you know what I mean?
I
different strokes for different folks, right? Yeah. There's a percentage of people that actually love the gal in front of the Lamborghini that you know is not theirs.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or the guy who's like flashy and they're like, yeah, I want that, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm just saying.
No, I agree.
Apparently there's a market for everybody.
There is, but I think to that point, that's the argument for be who you are, and you'll attract the right people to you that are supposed to do business with. Right. It's just an interesting time in this business. And I want to talk, because you're so involved with so many high level real estate producers. And I know that Katie Day is a huge part of what you guys do. She was recently on the podcast as a good friend of ours in Houston. We talk a lot about, with mortgage professionals specifically, right? Refis have dried up. They're coming out of the woodwork. I saw a video this morning with a realtor here in the DFW area that we're going to bring on the podcast because this one video she did. She started out and she said, hey, I really like your business. You're doing great things. I've been hearing great things about you. I'd love to take you to coffee, and all this line. She stopped. She said, I get that 3 or 4 times a day from you lenders. You need to listen up, like whatever. It is. I don't want that. It's a hysterical video, and but it's loud and clear. And so one of the questions I always ask with people that are high level real estate. We all think we know the answer to the question, and I feel like I have my assumption of what that looks like. But from your perspective, if people are wanting to create real relationships with people that are actually doing business in real estate, what is some examples of what that looks like?
Do you want outreach or do you want inbound?
Man, whatever's top of mind for you. Any tips you can offer people?
So, I mean, there's literally hundreds of tactics. I mean, we can talk about like when is the right time to ask for a referral to get another agent to refer you to another agent. Do you know the answer? When they say thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Phil, for getting that loan done on time. Thank you for making me look like a star. Thank you for solving the problem and having my client who thought they were going to lose the deal, or 54% of all loans don't close on time. Thank you for actually having it close on time and being ready early, right? Thank you. That's the moment where you say, Phil, you're most welcome. And can I ask a small favor? Just a small favor. Can I ask a small favor?
Absolutely.
And why is it that people say yes to that and they have no idea? Could you please give me all of your money and your children? Like, what is a small favor? But everybody says yes in that moment because it's a moment of reciprocity. Right? So I just said thank you. So I'm going to turn and say, can I ask a small favor? They're going to say yes. And you're going to say, would you be willing to find just one person that's like you, that, vibes the way we vibe, works the way we work, that's in the industry, that needs a lender like me that goes the extra mile? Can I count on you for just one? Can you think about one person right now?
Absolutely.
And they're all going to go, don't even tell me their name. When are you going to see him next? When are you going to see him next? Tuesday. Would it be too much to ask for you to have a conversation with that person on Tuesday, tell them a little bit about how we work together, right? And just see if they'd be willing to meet with me. And if the answer is yes, why don't I call you, when are you going to meet with them on Tuesday?
I think we're going to lunch.
Why don't I call you on Wednesday? Morning or afternoon?
Afternoon.
Afternoon's better? 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock? What's good?
3 o'clock's great.
On this line or another, right? Cell, face, whatever it may be, right? So I'm going to literally call 3 o'clock and ready. No one that's good does follow up. No one does this, hey, I'm checking in. That's what amateurs do. Pros go, hey, I'm calling as promised. Did you talk to your buddy at lunch yesterday? How'd the conversation go?
Well, great.
Would they be willing to meet with me?
They absolutely would. They're lenders dropping the ball and taking 15 other realtors to coffee and dropping on their loans.
I got to ask though, are they like you?
Absolutely. Because
you and I, we jam. Like we get each other, and if they're like you and I, then like I'm in. Can you make that connection? Do you want to like that kind of stuff, right? A good lender can do that all day long. Right? Like that's a formula for asking for referrals. I mean, do we really need that? By the way, my business works fine. Like, I just want to like throw up my mouth, right?
the business cards, the biggest compliment you can give is a referral thing.
You know what I do with those cards? You know what I do with almost all business cards? I use them as like Q-tip, whatever, clean my teeth, and I flick them, right? Like it's just dumb. Like it's just, no, text me, bro. Like right? That's the world we live in. I understand. Like I think the coolest business card ever is just a white card that has Google and then the search bar and your name in it. Just hand it to them. Because that's awesome. What everybody does anyway, right? They're like, is Phil a knucklehead, right? Lawsuits against Phil, right? Like that's what people are
Tom Ferry scam.
Right. Lawsuits, scam, right? Like that's what people do. So like that's an easy thing that everybody can start doing tomorrow. Right? It's when you get the thank you, right? Say, you're most welcome. This is what I love to do. And can I ask a small favor? Right? They're always going to say yes. And then the small favors, can you just introduce me to one person that's like you? Do you think of one person like you, right? Like that's an easy one. If I was a lender today, I would probably be more fixated on how do I put together events that are specialized for the type of agent I most want to meet. And then they're coming to me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And yes, we can email a market and we can say, do you have these problems? We have these solutions. Would you like to learn from other top agents? Bring agents from outside of your market, like bring Katie Day from Houston to Dallas.
Yeah.
You with me? And then bring, Edna Kimball from Oklahoma into Dallas, like as an example, and say, hey, Edna's a friend of mine. She listed 176 homes last year with a small team, did 225 transactions, and it's just the kind of person you want to hug and say thank you, because she's just, Edna, if you're listening, that's how much I love you. And she's a beast, right? She's an extraordinary agent. You bring in Edna, and then what does everybody want to do? They want to learn from others that are in the trenches doing it.
That's awesome.
Does that make sense?
That's 100%.
Right? So you create moments and opportunities like that. I don't care if there's 5 agents that show up or 15 agents or 5,000 agents that show up. How many of those individual relationships you want? And then it's the follow-up game. And like you don't want to say I'm checking in as promised. You want to say, hey, what would be the best time for us to get together and like have a conversation about your business or whatever you say, whatever your pitch is, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, next week. Well, next week's a big week, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. What's better for you? Narrow it down and call them on the exact time that you promise. Because what does that tell the real estate agent about a lender?
It means that you're going to call back when you say you're going to call back. Do what you say you're going to do.
She's reliable. Yeah. He's reliable. What is their mortgages are commodities. Yeah. What is their biggest concern?
Whether or not you're going to follow up, whether or not you're going to close the deal on time.
Are you going to communicate with my clients? Are you going to make me look like a star? Or are you going to not? You're going to drop the ball and make me look bad.
100%. Right? It's funny. The very first flyers I used to have at the bottom had my cell phone number, and we built them in Word, so that the trifecta was bold, italicized, underlined, available 7 days a week.
Yep.
Right. I'm not gonna put 24/7 because I'm gonna answer it too.
No.
But you can call me. The message is I will communicate with you whenever you need to.
Yep.
And I'm gonna the audience isn't gonna love this, but I'm gonna do it anyway because you just illustrated 3 things again that we've talked about. The marketing formula: pick agents that you want to do business with, find a specific problem, and the best medium is these workshops.
Yep.
And the second part is by bringing someone in and adding real value, you're now going from features to benefit.
Yep.
The worst problem, in my opinion, in marketing with mortgage professionals specifically, we spend so much time thinking we're marketing, we're selling, and we're listing all these features, and no one cares unless you can show this is how it's going to benefit them.
Right.
And that's what that was. And I wanted to put an exclamation point on it because I think that those are incredible tips.
And notice I didn't say a buyer's agent. I said a listing agent.
Yeah.
Right? Whoever's like, oh, I want to take more listings, especially in this environment, right? Always and forever. But what I see oftentimes the mistake that lenders make is they make it about them. More mortgages, more loans, more applications, more deals versus, hey, I just want you to get better. You can tell your journey of how I lost 40 pounds in 30 days. And there's a lot of people in real estate, they're like, how'd you do that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Are you okay? Right? Like,
exactly.
But again, it's value is delivered in different ways to different people based on different needs. That's why, like, when we send an email out and say, hey, Tom or Jason or Debbie or one of my coaches and trainers is going to be in town doing an event near you. That's why I never take it personally if there's 200 people or 500 people or 1,000 people. When there was 11,000 people, that got the email and 15,000 people on the board of realtors, the MLS, I'm like, the people that are showing up are the people that are interested in the message.
Absolutely.
Like, stop making the person that didn't respond wrong. You know what I mean? Like, just love on the ones that are there, deliver as promised, follow up as promised, and you're going to kill it.
It's almost like you were listening to those Zig Ziglar tapes back in the day. Help enough other people get what they want. I mean,
some people were raised on milk and cookies, man. I was raised on Zig. No, I remember literally distinctly my dad said to me when I went to work for him, he was like, Brian Tracy's Psychology of Selling and Psychology of Achievement, the two were there together. Zig Ziglar, C at the top, and Earl Nightingale lead the field. And he said, you have to listen to these 3 while you're working. And I want a detailed, like he gave me like this one the first week, second week. And what happened was he said, just tell me which one speaks to you the most. And I was like, okay. So then, I'm listening and like, I remember Zig, and you got to have goals for you, right? And I was like, nah, it's not really my bag, right? But I saw him live and I loved him. Brian Tracy spoke to me.
Yeah.
Right. Earl Nightingale, I can listen to today, but I can listen to like 1.5 to 3, speed because I just need it to be faster and not have him sound like Darth Vader. But you find the message that you get attracted to, and then you go deep on it, and that's what you're talking about here. Like
100%.
So one is the easy way to ask for referrals. The other one is like one easy way, right? And you don't even have to have it be your own event.
Yeah.
I forget the guy's name. He's a huge loan officer in San Diego. Partner with John Bianchi, who now is I think runs most of Loan Depot. And so one of his early partners, Mike something, and what they would do is they would buy bulk sets of tickets to other existing events. They didn't care who the presenter was.
Yeah.
I have 15 seats. I don't think we can do it anymore with RESPA and all this kind of, right? But like, back in the day, like, or they would say, hey, I'm giving you access to or VIP experience. You buy your, whatever it is, right? Follow all the rules, all the cameras, follow all the rules. Don't be silly, right? But again, it was the acknowledgement that people that are going to events are going to events because they want to improve.
Yes.
So even if you were just at the event, right? Just go. That's why I tell people if they want to recruit, go to where the people that want to get better are at. Go there in the morning, hang out, meet 5 people, get 2 business cards for next potential recruits or coffee meetings, and then stay through the first break. What did you learn? What did you like? Get 2 more business cards, talk to people you don't know, and then leave.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's a 3-day seminar. You got what you need. You got 3-4 cards. You got a couple of people to follow up on. Boom, you're in the game.
Your network is based on your net worth is based on your network, right? We all kind of understand.
Yeah.
That. Well, man, I want to be a good steward of your time, and I want to ask you one last question. That's around blind spots. What do you think is the biggest blind spot that our industry has right now that they're just not paying attention to?
Mortgage specifically?
Mortgage, real estate, either one.
We'll do mortgage first. Mortgage to me, so I own a lot of real estate, and I've certainly gone through the process of a lot of loans. It is just as exciting as going to the DMV and slightly less annoying than going to the dentist. Think about it.
It is.
Okay, so I won't say the name of the company, but they're the #1 lender in the country. The experience is horrible going to either one of my banks that I have banking relationships with, and they have all of my information and my money, and it's horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. But see, since we only do it now and then, or I'm doing it to save money because I'm refining, no one seems to care. So I would make the argument for someone needs to modernize the experience. I should be able to get on my phone, push a button, and get a mortgage. I can on my phone buy a $500,000 Ferrari and never talk to a salesperson.
Right.
Why do I need to talk to a loan officer? Why do I need to go through the process? Why is it so laborious? Now I understand a lot of people screwed up massively from 1999, technically kind of all the way to 2006, which changed a lot. But at what point are we going to say the consumer deserves a better experience? A more reliable, a more trusted, a more beautiful experience for something that is so meaningful, whether it's buying your first home or buying your parents a home or buying a second home or, buying an investment property. Like, it should be this like momentous thing, not this like, now that you pulled 7 teeth out and you were late and there was fees that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No, I agree, because while we're in the process of moving there, right? Because I think there's a lot of people that share that thinking and getting to that place. What I tell people is you have to think about your everyday life, right? Being in the DFW area, when I go shopping on Amazon, and I sort by Prime, if I can't get it same day or next day, I'm probably buying a different product, right?
Right.
And we all do that.
Heaven forbid you're going to the mall.
I know, right? Like I have to leave my house for something, and if I do, it's going to be like store pickup, one of those little special spots.
Exactly.
But then we go into a mortgage transaction. A lot of loan officers are sending emails with bullet points of 52 documents that they need, and email and scan this, that, and the other. And so my point in there is I totally agree that we're not there yet, but there's a lot of things that mortgage professionals can do to provide an infinitely better experience than has been provided.
1,000%. Did you ever read the book, The Experience Economy?
Yes, I have.
Like that book I swore by for a long time, and I would encourage anybody to, wherever you are in the stages of your career, read that book again. Like, it's the difference between a coffee bean versus like the actual cost of a coffee bean commodity versus going to Starbucks and getting a triple makalaka wakalula and spending $6 on it and walking around with this badge of
I overpaid for my coffee. Yeah.
Look at me, right? And but that is what is the delta between a Four Seasons and the crappiest hotel you can imagine, right? They're both a bed and a pillow that you can close to shades and hopefully get a good night's sleep. But one you spend $3,000 a night for, and one you get it for $29.95. Right. Like one could make the argument that if a lender and a real estate agent and an insurance agent and a dentist and a restaurant owner and the person that sells these phones and these things and these sneakers and everything else, these microphones, if they don't make the experience better, they become commoditized. And when they do, your prices don't go up.
That's exactly right.
They go down.
Well, it's like Simon Sinek says, let me back up. Mortgage professionals are unknowingly commoditizing themselves with this whole rate conversation.
I'm
not gonna go down that total road, but and start with why there's a section that he talks about that gets overlooked, and he said, selling for less is a lot like doing drugs. The first time it feels really, really good, but then you have to do it more and more to get the same high. And he said, in business we call it a commodity, but in the real world we call it a junkie.
Right.
And I'm telling folks, listen, you're turning into an addict unknowingly, because to your point, wouldn't it be so much more fun for everyone involved, yourself included, to provide this different experience for people? And it's just getting overlooked, because I use a dentist example. I now go to a dentist where there's this little screen. When he lays me back, I have this little screen. He just says, what channel do you want it on? Right. Give you little earbuds or whatever.
Right.
That I'll pay more. I don't care if my insurance in network or not, because I'm going to watch the game or whatever.
Yep.
So
experience.
Yeah, totally.
Like getting on an airplane. But let's talk about the real estate industry for a second. So there's 1.6 million, I know it's a little bit less now as we sit here today, inside of the MLS known as a real estate agent. They're not all realtors. There's like 1.35 or 1.4 million realtors with the National Association of Realtors. But when you look broadly, globally, let's stay in the U.S. because we probably have the U.S. and Canada seem to have the strictest rules around licensing as an example. Maybe Australia is probably the best example, but let's stay here. I think we have about 800,000 too many agents. Now, the good news is, we know the stats, 71% of all the volume across all MLSs in the U.S., 71% of all the volume, and pretty close to that on transactions, is controlled by the top 25% of the agents.
It's almost like it's an 80-20 rule.
It's really darn close. Well, how about the top 10%? Go in the top 10% of the MLSs, they control, on average, 51% of all the volume in the transactions. Now, you can make the argument, and I do also, that some of those people have teams, and all those transactions maybe roll up onto the individual. And I say, okay, so if there's 10,000 people in the MLS, right, the top 1,000, right, the top 10%, so yeah, maybe it's really 2,200 because they have a couple buyers, agents, and teams. But still, do we really need the bottom 50%?
Agreed.
Now, I understand if the NAR, the state association, the MLSs, everyone that gets monetized based on dues, they're like, we need 10 million people. We need you should graduate from college and get your real estate license and pay us our dues. I fundamentally believe that the consumer deserves a better experience, and it's really hard to argue against someone that does something once every 4 or 5 months who's going to do that at a high level.
Yeah.
Now I understand it's your friend and that you love them, and maybe you want to help them out. Maybe they're getting started, and you were kind enough to buy a house from them, and hopefully they've got a great mentor and a great manager and a great loan officer and a great title partner and a great escrow partner. Hopefully, but what if they don't?
Right.
What if they don't? Like, that's just a fundamentally horrific. Why do a lot of people get into real estate? Like, when you go deep, like, people will say beyond the last decade and a half, oh, I watched $1 Million Listing and I want to be Ryan Serhant, right? Like, beyond that, flip this, Brett, love Tarek, all those guys, right? But no, a lot of them said, I had a horrific experience, and said to myself, if that guy can make $18,000 selling me this house, I'm going into that business versus doing this business.
Yeah.
So I argue for the consumer. The consumer deserves a better experience. Someone's going to deliver it. It's clearly not going to be Redfin. It's definitely not going to be Open Door and Zillow iBuyers, right? Like, all that stuff didn't work. The humanness, people want like a data-driven human who has empathy, who has great skills. And that person, like my buddy, shout out to Chris Duma if you're listening, a buddy of mine back in Newport Beach who does like 13 to 15 brain surgeries a week.
Jeez.
Who do you want? Do you want, like, hey, your child, heaven forbid, like, knock on wood for anybody, right? Like, something happens. Who do you want? The gal that does it 15 times a week, or the dude that did it once in the last 65 days?
Couldn't agree more.
Like, that to me is just common sense. And yet the data even shows today that 65% of all the listings get listed by someone that they know, like, trust, past client, center of influence, sphere, referral, etc. They don't even know they're having a bad experience. Well, now they do.
Starting to.
Because days on market is longer,
Yeah.
right? Price sensitivity, amendments of prices, the number of listings that are coming off the market right now because people aren't selling as fast, and that, right? So who you work with matters. Mortgage side, right? Title side, real estate side, the brand you work with, all of it really matters.
I couldn't agree more. It's super important that people caught that, because even the excuse that gets made is, yeah, but those top 10% have teams or whatever.
So what?
It's easy to say, until you go build a team like that and keep them together, because especially high producing ones, when you have people on that team that are producing a chunk, sometimes there's ones that are like, well, I could go do this myself and make more, whatever. So we need to keep the context there that you can, my mentor said, any excuse will do. Doesn't matter what excuse you're going to make. It just is what it is. So
I'm stealing that. Any excuse will do. Pick yours, right?
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, you look at even the best agents and teams and individuals here. I mean, Allie Beth's a team, right? The actual human Allie Beth.
Yeah.
Ebby, did you ever meet Ebby?
No, I didn't.
So I remember doing a seminar. I think Ebby was like 101, sitting in the room taking more notes than anybody else, right? Like, I mean,
I read a book on Ebby. She's a stud.
Total legend, right? Yeah. Dave Perry, right? Shout out to Dave Perry, who's no longer active but still has the business, sold to Berkshire Hathaway. Ryan, who's the #1 guy there, was just in my office a couple of days ago. Like, what's happened is you got to suspend this disbelief that you can't scale. Like, you can't industrialize a real estate transaction. You can. And I've watched, yesterday, literally in this room over here, you saw some of the, one of my clients, they did 3,100 transactions last year. Now, he didn't take a single buyer or seller, but he created a method, he created a process, and it got delivered like a Four Seasons delivers, the same way in Tokyo, the same way in Dallas, no longer, but hopefully off Oaklawn soon, right? You with me? Like, they've created a method and a process, and I think that's what people struggle with when they think about teams. They think, oh, I'll just get Hector and Idris and Jordan and Phil and I, and we'll just like take a photo and we'll all wear jeans and a white shirt. Ta-da, we're a team. Mm-hmm. That's all BS.
That's exactly right.
It is like, hey man, we're gonna be the force multiplier. You're a Navy SEAL, you're a Navy SEAL, you're a Navy SEAL. You got this, you got bridges, you got front, I got back. We all go in together. Everybody knows their roles. Everybody has their responsibilities. There's unity, there's alignment on compensation. There's so much to it. And that's why you see them taking over the world. They don't all work. Some people totally blow it up and they screw it up, but that's business. That's marriage. That's everything, right? You figure it out.
You do. And this whole podcast is coming full circle. You mentioned Ryan Serhant. When we had him on the podcast, and I asked the last question that we ask a lot of our guests, which is, what's the one tip you would give? What's the blind spot? He said, follow up, follow through, follow back, which is his system. His entire business was built on incredible database building and follow up. Yes. And so I think that's so cool because, to your point, these are these elite ones that you put out there that, maybe for the TV show, Ryan's working with some listers and some buyers, but for the most part, he's created a system that people will buy into.
A method, a process. McDonald's, Disney, you with me? Like, you can do that, right? My buddy owns a Nectar Juice Bar, 300 locations. They make the green drinks the same way in every single one of them, and people line up to get the green drink. You know what I mean? Like, 100%. It's a process. So for the person listening, it goes back to that very first point. What are the places I run that work? Especially as we sit, I don't know when this is going to be released, but going to the end of the year, beginning of the year, whenever. What are the places I do that work? How do I do more of them? What are the places that I do that don't work? How do I do less of them? But where I know there's optimization to be had, put them in a separate bucket. And then how can I work on improving the experience, the method, the writing, the script, whatever it may be. Because we're going to have to add in the mortgage business some new opportunities and improve on what already works, right? Or that wall is not going to be very sturdy, certainly not in 2023.
So good. Tom, you've been an incredible guest. I appreciate it. Throw out social media handles at Tom Ferry, I believe, tomferry.com. Guys, go follow this guy. He puts out fire content. Man, I appreciate you taking the time.
Appreciate you, man. Nice to get to know you this way, too. Yeah, very cool. Appreciate it.